All right, today we're doing chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, Essentials version, Paramahansa Vishwananda. So we'll just be reading the verses in English and we'll be reading the commentary too, just as exactly how it is in the book. Just start with a brief invocation. Om, Om, Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Swami Vishwanandaya Namaha. Om Shri Anjanatimilandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Dakshuru Militamyana Tasmai Shri Gurubhe Namaha. Cool. All right, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8. Let's enjoy some timeless classic wisdom. Aksara Brahma Yoga, the eternal abode. Krishna begins by clarifying terms he has used at the end of the previous chapter, and in response to Arjuna's question, explains how he can be known at the time of death. It is our last thought before leaving the body that decides our destination. But this thought is a product of our state of consciousness, and therefore Krishna urges Arjuna to incessantly fix his mind upon him. Following on from chapter 6, Krishna further describes the technique on how to achieve this. By infusing devotion, bhakti, into the practice of yoga given by Krishna thus far, one can control the senses and life breath to reach the Supreme. This chapter then outlines the cosmology of the universe. Krishna states that each life in this world is ultimately suffering, since nothing we experience is permanent. The material plane is made up of many realms, the highest of which is where Brahma resides. But even there, one is subject to constant birth and death. Each of Brahma's days and nights lasts thousands of ages, yugas, and every time we are helplessly brought out into existence and withdrawn into a dormant state. But beyond this abode, there is another realm that is beyond this cosmic cycle and does not decay. Through pure devotion, one can reach its highest abode, which is none other than Krishna. Hence, Krishna's abode is not the place where Krishna resides, but it is Krishna himself. This realization is considered to be the highest realization one can attain in life, and also referred to as God realization. Those who know the Vedas understand that there are two times to leave the body. One is auspicious and leading to freedom from rebirth, and the other brings one back to bondage. But the devotee who is fixed on Krishna is not bewildered by these timings. While those who follow the rituals and practice of scripture gain a certain limited reward, the one who practices bhakti yoga attains Krishna himself. Okay, chapter 8, intro, key terms. Brahma, deity born from the Supreme Lord, responsible for creating within the physical universe. Bhakti Yoga, the path of loving devotion to God. So I'm just going to adjust the mic a little bit. Whoop, sorry. All right. Verses 1 through 4. Krishna defines different terms. Arjuna says, "My Supreme Lord, what is that Brahman? What is the Adhyatma? What is meant by karma? What is the Adibhuta? And who is said to be Adhidaiva? Adideva. Daiva. Who is the Adiyagna, and how does he exist in this body? O Krishna, and how are you to be known at the time of death by the self-controlled?" Lord Krishna says, "Brahman is the Supreme that does not change or decay. One's own inherent nature is said to be the Adityaatma, and the creative force which gives rise to material beings is known as karma. The Adibhuta is the material world which perishes. The Adidaivata Adidayavata, is the cosmic governing deity, and it is I myself who is the Adiyagna present in the body. Lord Krishna has already spoken about all these terms, but Arjuna is still trying to understand and his mind is getting confused. He says, "You are the Lord of everything. You surpass everything. It would be simpler if you would just tell me, I am the Lord. I get confused with all these terms." Arjuna didn't really have a confused mind, but a mind that wanted to understand, a scientific, rational mind. But it was good that his mind was in such a state. Otherwise, he would not have kept Lord Krishna talking, giving the Gita to him and to humanity. This indestructible self, which is above all the material nature, is the higher nature itself. This is divinity, Parabrahma, Krishna himself, who is the source and the core of the individual soul. When this higher nature of God manifests and takes form in this lower reality through his Prakriti, through his will, it takes the aspects of the body, the senses, the mind, and the intellect, but it stays completely out of it. The Atma presides over the body, the mind, the senses, and the intellect. When something is limited by matter or by existence, and parts of it are taken away little by little, it reaches a point when every part has been taken away and it's finished. But no matter how many parts of the Lord come out of the Lord, he is still full. He doesn't get diminished. He can manifest himself many times in this world, and yet there's no limit to him. Lord Krishna declares that the supreme reality, the Jivatma, and the lower material creation are three different aspects of the Lord. Even if due to ignorance, the lower material nature affects the body, the mind, and the intellect, it doesn't touch the individual soul. Due to ignorance, the people who dwell in the worldly materialistic reality, completely focused on the outer world, completely focused on the negative qualities, can't perceive the soul, the Atma, inside themselves. On the other hand, people who are on the spiritual path, who are dedicated to their sadhana, who are calm and stable, can perceive and feel the Atma. Through the knowledge of the self, through meditating on the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and putting it into practice, one takes the path of bhakti. One becomes aware of the Atma. To become spiritual means that you have the awareness that you are not only this body, you are not only this mind. You realize that you are the individual soul, and in that state you praise the Lord and love the Lord. And then you ascend to such a degree that you perceive the Lord continuously within yourself and have that great joy, the bliss to serve him. Krishna also says that beyond the Atma is the supreme indestructible self, Akshara. The ignorant one can't perceive the self, but the self is ever present. Sometimes it reveals itself through a certain feeling, through a certain awareness. In that same way, the Supreme Soul reveals himself to the Bhakta as the Super Soul, the highest of all. When the mind unites with the heart, something else comes out. When the mind is purified to become intellect, that intellect enters the heart. What awakens is the consciousness of the soul. When the consciousness is purified, it reveals the soul. But when that soul is purified, it reveals the super soul, the supreme soul. To those who are fully absorbed into the divine bliss, the Lord reveals himself. He reveals that there is no difference between him and the individual soul. It is the same quality. The only difference is quantity. The light is the same, but the intensity of that light differs. When you have a light, you can look at it, but the light of the Lord you can't look at. The spark taken from the fire you can look at. You can probably put it out with your hand also, but if you have a huge fire and you put your hand into it, you will get burned. Like this, you have different degrees of burning and you have different degrees of light. Verses 5 through 16, fixing the mind on Krishna at death. And the one who leaves his body at the time of death and contemplates upon me alone, without doubt, reaches me. Arjuna, whatever state one remembers when leaving the body, that state one will certainly attain after death. For a person's condition is the inevitable result of what has been dwelt upon throughout one's life. Therefore, ever mindful of me at all times fight. With your mind and intellect dedicated to me, you will be free of doubt and surely come to me. O Arjuna, with the mind absorbed and constantly engaged in yoga, without thinking of anything else, one reaches the divine Supreme Being. One should meditate on the all-knowing Supreme Person, the one who is the oldest and supreme controller of all. His form is inconceivable, more subtle than an atom, and the maintainer of everything. He is brilliant like the sun and beyond all darkness. At the time of death, one should dwell in a state of devotion, and with the strength of yoga, one should maintain an unwavering mind. Keeping the life force between the eyebrows in the proper way, one reaches that divine Supreme Being. I shall now explain that goal which the knowers of the Vedas call the imperishable. Those ascetics who are free from desire enter into it, and due to their aspiration for perfection, they take vows of celibacy. Having closed all the entrances of the body, focusing the mind within the heart, fixing the life force within the head, one should be engaged in yoga practice with steady concentration. Chanting the sacred syllable Om, which embodies the Absolute, thinking of me constantly, one abandons the body and leaves the world, thereby reaching the supreme goal. O Arjuna, I am easily attainable by that steadfast practicing yogi who is constantly mindful of me, not thinking of anything else. Having reached the highest perfection and attaining me, the great ones never again take rebirth in this world, which is transient and full of misery. Rebirth is inevitable right up to the world of Brahma, but after attaining me, O Arjuna, there is no rebirth. Among all the human beings, how many people die with an attitude of leaving the body to attain the Lord? Only very few. After passing through 8.4 million births and manifesting through the entire chain of creation, the individual soul attains a human body. It's a very rare opportunity to attain the level of a human being who can then strive to attain the Lord. One has to grasp such an opportunity. Bhagavan Krishna says to Arjuna, "Fight, but keep your mind focused on me." This means that one must do one's duty in life. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing in this world, God has placed you there for a reason. So accept it and do your action properly. However, your mind should be fully focused on Him and not only on the outside world. It's very important to control how you breathe. Through control, through pranayama, one learns how to be centered inwardly. People who live a hectic life in the outside world also breathe in a hectic way. They're not just working hard, but they're draining themselves severely. They very quickly have heart attacks and die young. The life force is finished. Since time immemorial, the yogis have meditated on the Om vibration, the primordial cosmic sound, the sound that contains everything and that is beyond the creation, preservation, and destruction of the universe. Lord Krishna himself says, "I am Om." The bhaktas are fully absorbed in the divine sound Om. They become fully immersed in it and go deeper and deeper. At that moment, everything becomes still. The body is still, the mind is still, the consciousness is still. Only the cosmic sound Om is vibrating there in the third eye. One loses oneself, one loses consciousness of the body and perceives the Lord. At that point, it's not only a vibration. The Supreme Lord Narayana himself takes a certain aspect. He manifests himself, reveals himself in one's consciousness. The one who has attained that state, the highest status, becomes a true bhakta, who has realized the Absolute. Once one has attained the highest status, even if one dwells in the outside world, engaging oneself in many activities, one's mind, one's consciousness is never deviated. The divine himself is crystallized into one's mind, and then one is free. Whereas the minds of people who have not realized that state are always busy running toward the outside world. The outside reality is crystallized into their minds, and they can never be free. Therefore, japa kriya, the continuous repetition of the divine names, is very important. This leads one to God realization, not just to self-realization, but to God realization. Then one is free from that cycle of birth and death. One perceives the supreme reality not only in oneself, but everywhere. He reveals himself to the one who aims for self-realization, and to the one who aims to reach even beyond self-realization, who aims for God consciousness. In self-realization, the self is revealed to the intellect and in the mind, but higher than self-realization is God realization. Once the Lord has revealed himself within the core of the self, one is fully absorbed in his love and attains him, the Supreme Purusha. When you have this love for God, he limits himself and takes an aspect of form, because as you long for him, he also longs for you. This is how God manifests in a certain form, making it easy for you to come to him. It is very difficult for those who dwell in the outside world, who have no faith, who no knowledge of the glory of God, to attain him. Whereas it becomes easy for a bhakta. When people reach the state of entering the heart, what they perceive through that love miraculously changes their lives. Due to their readiness, they are brought to the spiritual path. They are brought to the spiritual master so that they can drink the nectar, the divine nectar, grow and perfect themselves. As they have a longing for God, God also has a similar longing for them. The Lord gathers all the people who have this same yearning and brings them together. Then they have the privilege of being in touch with saints and God-realized souls. Chapter 17 through 28, Breaking Free of Brahmana's Creation. Those who know the duration of a cosmic day and night understand a day of Brahman lasts for 1,000 Mahayugas, and a night of Brahman lasts for another 1,000 Mahayugas. At the beginning of a day of Brahma, all beings come forth from the unmanifest, and when the night comes, they are dissolved back into the unmanifest state. These same beings come forth again and again, and helplessly they are withdrawn at the coming of the night. When the next day begins, yet again they manifest. There is, however, another unmanifested realm which is superior to this unmanifest place of the material world. It is eternal and does not get destroyed when all other living beings pass away. This unmanifest realm is called the imperishable realm. It is the highest goal from which one does not return. It is my supreme abode. The Supreme Being is attained by unswerving devotion. Arjuna. He is the one in which all beings exist and by whom this whole universe is pervaded. Arjuna, now I will describe to you the different times of leaving this world. One in which the yogi does not return, and the other in which they do. The knowers of Brahman attain that supreme and leave during the influence of the fiery deity, Agni, the day, the bright fortnight, or during the 6 months of the northern course of the sun. But the yogi who leaves during the smoke, absence of the fire deity, the night, the dark fortnight, or the 6 months of the southern course of the sun, reaches the light of the moon and then returns. Therefore, understand that there exist two eternal paths of departure, the light and the dark. By following the path of the light, one does not come back, but by following the dark, one returns. But Arjuna, the true yogi who knows these two paths, is never bewildered. Therefore, Arjuna, at all times engage yourself in yoga. Whatever merits are gathered from the study of the Vedas, from the performance of sacrifices, or from the practice of austerities and charity, all of it is transcended by the yogi, who knows this teaching of mine and reaches the original supreme abode. During the day and night of Brahma, everything is created and everything is destroyed. This also represents the ignorance in man. Even if one has this deep inner wisdom anchored inside, when one has to make a choice between right and wrong, the mind doesn't see clearly enough to make the right decision. Even if one has the feeling, if I do that, I will suffer. God is guiding me on the way. I know that I have to realize myself. When one acts, one always does something to make oneself suffer. So one falls again and again into darkness. It is said that 100 years of the life of Brahma is equivalent to one breath of Mahavishnu. So while Mahavishnu is inhaling one time, Brahma disappears. This means that in just one breath of Mahavishnu, the entire collection of countless universes are annihilated and enter into the body of Mahavishnu. When Mahavishnu exhales, the creation happens again, and that takes 311 trillion years. How easy is it to attain the Lord? You don't have to go through all these billions of years. You don't even have to go through one inhaling and exhalation of Mahavishnu. You don't have to go through all this. You can just be a bhakta and enjoy his love. Whether he breathes or not, you don't have to bother about it. The ones who are constantly immersed in his love, the divine love, within their own self, realize the essence of God. They realize that God is not just the one who they pray to outside themselves, but he is the essence of their bhakti, the essence of what they want to achieve. They realize that he is actually inside them. Those bhaktas who have developed such devotion, who are absorbed in their worship, in their sadhana, in their chanting, will quickly reach the state of God realization. In such a state of bhakti, of deep, supreme devotion, one must long for the Lord like a ship which is out of the water, like a ship which is out of the water longs for water, or like a man who is drowning longs for air. Krishna here says that he gives himself only to the bhaktas who have such a longing for realization, who has such a longing for him. So if you want to reach God realization, you have to be very dedicated. You can't be superficial. You can't be insincere or just a part-time devotee on the spiritual path. To attain the Lord, you have to do everything for the sake of developing that supreme devotion. Death doesn't have any effect on the ones who are completely surrendered to him, Krishna. Not even Yamaraja, the Lord of Death, has power over the bhaktas of the Lord. They leave this world when he wills them to leave, and they come back again when he wills them to come back. A yogi, a bhakta, is fully absorbed into God consciousness so that he will not stay here forever. The bhaktas who are surrendered, who have not fully realized themselves before departing this world, go to higher lokas to perfect themselves, and then they come back again. And when they come back again, they come for the benefit of others. Krishna says, because they are fully surrendered, I myself send them down, the saints who are born again on earth for the welfare of society, come to remind others about the goal of life. Chapter 8, Key Terms. Yugas, defined as an age or an epoch in Hindu cosmology. There are 4 distinct yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga, each period being shorter, darker, and less righteous than the preceding. Mankind is currently in the age of Kali Yuga. In this verse, Krishna states that both a day and a night of Brahma lasts 1,000 Mahayugas, which is actually 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas mentioned, a period that lasts trillions of years. Verses 24 through 25 make references to the Vedic Upanishads, which describe different ways of leaving the body. The auspicious 6 months during the light are known as Uttarayana, and the inauspicious months are known as Dakshinayana. Both are recognized in the Hindu calendar today. Chapter 8 commentary, key terms. Jivatma, the term interchanged with Jiva, which refers to the embodied self. Mahavishnu, a cosmic manifestation of the Supreme Lord Narayana, in which he is classically holding the conch, discus, mace, and lotus in each of his 4 hands.